Just leave it.
Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be watching scary videos. Yeah. He's just not in the chat yet. But we are going to be watching scary videos, y'all.
We decided to come alive to shine our
We never
eyes.
did this, but now we are. Let me recap. Don't show your kids this, because your kids are going to be so scared.
Yeah.
If you're there, listen, Marie. Yeah. I'm just saying. Oh, well, if your kids like scary things,
show them.
Yeah. Oh, that one's so creepy.
That one.
You guys sure you can handle it?
Yes, but Mommy, if I still have nightmares, this is all on you.
Then let's not watch
No,
it.
No, Mommy, I want to watch it, please.
There you go.
I don't sleep that much. Guys, I'm going to be watching scary videos. Let's do this. So, by the way, like and subscribe before you end this video and watch this with us. So, basically, this is only our first time watching scary videos.
Yo,
Okay.
we're in the corner. Yo, what's up, guys?
Are you guys ready for this?
Welcome to our video. Let's do this, y'all. Press it. Just pause.
Okay, we're going on live now.
We're going on it now. Let's do this.
All right, guys. Let's see.
No one's going to get nightmares and no one's coming to Mommy's room.
I ain't.
I'm never going to have nightmares in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Guys, say you're not going to have nightmares in the name of Jesus because you might actually have nightmares.
I know.
I'm gonna get, like I used to wet my bed.
Because I'm going to get two-face.
Get the two-face.
I'm trying to...
Oh, I can actually hear a noise. Mommy, let's do this, yours.
What are you guys doing?
We have blankets, so just in case if we get scared.
Story one. We got it. Pause it. Yeah. Okay, guys.
We're going... we're gonna first pause it first so we can
Guys, we're going to pause it so
we can hear everything.
Yeah. Story run. Go back to the very start, guys.
And in mansion, which offered the best view around. It was rumored to be haunted, but a lot of couples our age sneaked there for some alone time. We packed a blanket, some beers, and started our hike up the hill just as the sun began to set. But to our surprise, we encountered the town's famous crazy loner, a man named Walter who lived in a shack near the top. The townspeople had many stories about him, none of them kind. Everyone was scared of him, to be honest. Where are you two sneaking? Just going up the hill to see the fireworks. Walter chuckled. I know just the fireworks that go up there.
Sir?
But he just started talking to himself. Deplorable. Look at what these kids have made of a great country like ours. Horrible, horrible and insensitive.
Let's go, Chris.
We exchanged uneasy glances and continued our climb. The mansion loomed ahead, its silhouette dark against the dusky sky. The place was in ruins, with ivy crawling up its sides and broken windows that stared out like empty eyes. We spread our blanket on the front lawn, but curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to explore inside.
What is that?
The air grew colder as we stepped through the creaking front door. The interior was musty and decayed, filled with the scent of old wood. But just as we moved through the dark hallways, we heard a distant wailing, like a woman crying. It echoed through the house, sending chills down my spine.
Did you hear that?
Chris nodded, his face pale. Maybe it's just the wind. We finally found a good view on the first floor, just as the sounds of fireworks began.
My question is, why are they walking?
Like in an abandoned house, in an abandoned mansion. Who would ever do that? And first of all, I saw something.
It just don't make... personally, I would not want to go anywhere close to this.
Yeah, if that man just came up to me, I was going that way.
I'm just gonna run.
I just dropped my glasses.
I just ran.
And a crackle in the distance. Chris put the blanket down, and we grabbed a beer each. Cheers. But suddenly, the sound of furniture being dragged across the floor reverberated through the halls. We froze,
house.
staring
Who's ready to hatch some cool pets?
Anime.
Click here
Okay,
to make
it's
your
sad.
very own.
at each other with wide eyes.
I think we have company.
Curiosity got the better of us. We
We're all
thought
in.
that there was another couple who had sneaked in the mansion and were getting naughty. It was a small town. Everybody knew everybody else. We thought it would be funny to jump in and find out who they were. We
Running.
followed the sound to a large room at the back of the house, and as we approached the door, it became obvious that a woman was crying inside. Something
y'all, I'm
felt
about to
really
call
wrong.
911.
My eyes
Calling
took a moment to
911.
adjust to the darkness, but without a doubt, I saw a figure move in the dark corner. As the fireworks went off outside, the light from them made us realize that there stood a pale woman, her eyes hollow and dark, wailing slowly. "Hey there, are you okay?" The woman remained motionless, and then, in an instant, she vanished. The room grew colder, and the wailing
That's what I
returned,
mean. That's when I
louder and more
run.
desperate. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my leg, looking down to see deep, bleeding scratches appear out of nowhere. That is when I saw the horror in Chris's eyes. We turned to run, but the door slammed shut.
Why did you
The
go to
lights
that area?
flickered, revealing the woman standing right in front of us now, her face twisted. She reached out, and an invisible force threw Chris across the room, slamming him into the wall. He groaned, struggling to stand. I rushed to his side, my own leg throbbing with pain. The air grew heavy, making it hard to breathe. We could hear maddening whispers all around us. Desperate, we stumbled through the house, trying to find an exit. As we rounded a corner, the woman appeared again, blocking our path. I felt a burning sensation on my arm, like icy fingers clawing at my flesh. Screaming, I lashed out, my hand passing through her as if she were made of smoke.
Please leave us alone.
But her wailing intensified.
You guys
In a
should never watch
last-ditch
this.
effort, Chris
It looked
kicked
like
open the
a
door
little-
and we ran as fast as our feet could carry us. As we neared Walter's shack, he stepped out. "You saw her, didn't you?"
Who was she?
"Margaret. She lived there with her husband and child decades ago. They say she went mad after losing them in a fire." Chris and I exchanged a horrified glance, the reality of our encounter sinking in. We thanked Walter and hurried back to town, eager to leave the hill and its ghosts behind.
He just looks scary.
Oh, she's following them. Following them. Oh, the neck is broken.
No. Y'all, I have one question.
Story 2.
The 4th of July had always been a big deal for Derek. Every year, he orchestrated the most elaborate fireworks show, mesmerizing the college crowd with his flair for the dramatic. He was good at it. It was his thing. Something that he could show off, and girls would finally look at him for like a day. This year was supposed to be the grandest display yet, but the morning brought a crushing blow. Permission denied. Derek stormed into Dean Michael's office and dragged me along since I was his roomie. "No, Derek, we aren't risking it this year." The dean's word was final, leaving no room for negotiation. Derek's face twisted in humiliation and anger. Now, having known Derek for some time, I knew he had terrible anger issues. He had been in depression much of his life and had an abusive childhood. It was called Derek the Dread. I couldn't point what, but something was definitely off about him. The humiliation was palpable that day, as Dean Michaels didn't just say no, but mocked Derek's obsession. "You'll regret this." Dean laughed him out, vowing vengeance. Derek retreated to our dorm room, seething with rage. I followed him, trying to calm him down, but his mind was already racing with ideas. "They don't want fireworks? I'll give them some." His eyes gleamed maniacally. It scared me. Over the next few hours, Derek meticulously gathered his arsenal. He had always been resourceful, but this time his resourcefulness took a dark turn. Firecrackers, rockets, and Roman candles. Derek had it all. He crafted makeshift bombs, combining the fireworks with gasoline and other flammable materials. It was terrifying to watch. Adam, help me. We need to set this up around the campus. I refused. He stared at me like a hawk
Why did he
before
say
carrying
no?
the fireworks out himself. To be honest,
I don't want
I didn't really think that he'd do something. But apparently, he moved stealthily, planting the devices in strategic locations: the courtyard, the library, the dorms. By evening, the campus was buzzing with excitement for the Independence Day festivities. There was a dance planned. Little did they know, Derek's dark plan was about to unfold. Walk with me.
If you
Let's
don't-
celebrate,
don't do stupid
he had
things like
said,
this.
before picking me from our room and pulling me outside. The first explosion rocked the courtyard, sending students scattering in panic. Derek stood in the chaos with a twisted smile
We love Opera GX. Most browsers are pretty plain and boring. Well, this is where GX mods comes in, because yes, you can mod your browser with
on his face. Derek, stop. Dude, this is insane.
See what?
But he was beyond
to
reason.
this side.
He pulled out a Roman candle, aiming it at a group of students trying to flee. The colorful flame shot towards them, catching their clothes on fire. Their screams soon filled the air as the smell of burning skin eclipsed the festivities. Beautiful, isn't it? I tried to run, but Derek grabbed me, dragging me along as he wreaked havoc. In the library, he threw firecrackers into the stacks, igniting a blaze that quickly spread. The acrid smell of burning paper filled the air, mingling with the terrified cries of students who ran out for their lives. We burst into the dining hall next. Derek's eyes locked onto a fire extinguisher. With a sickening glee, he ripped it from the wall and smashed it over a student's head. Blood splattered, and the student crumpled to the ground while Derek laughed out loud. Derek, you're insane! But this time I knew that Derek was gone. He caught a fleeing student in his strong arms, lit another firecracker, and shoved it into his open mouth. The explosion was gruesome, the sight horrifying beyond words. I vomited immediately as the jawless student meandered before falling on the ground. That is when I ran away from my life. The campus was in chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance, but it felt like an eternity before the authorities arrived. Derek's final act of terror was the dormitories. He doused the entrance with gasoline, lighting it with a sparkler. The flames roared to life, trapping everyone inside. The authorities chased Derek, who ran to the lawn and lit up all of his remaining firecrackers that he had placed there. And as the rockets took to the skies, the officers shot him dead. But the damage was done. The college was engulfed in flames, the destruction unimaginable. Only 43 suffered minor to severe burns, and 7 lost their lives. We couldn't believe all that had transpired. Derek had been my friend, my roommate. I had seen the warning signs, but never imagined it would come to this. Derek's rampage had left an indelible mark on everyone. We would remember 4th of July, not for the fireworks or celebrations, but for the terror and devastation one man had brought.
He was horrible.
The 4th of July had always been a special day for us. This year, we decided to celebrate with a campfire and barbecue in the woods. The location was infamous, known as the Suicide Forest, because of the numerous suicides reported there over the years. We joked about it, not taking the rumors seriously. There was me, Lauren, and my friends, Emily, Jessica, and Sarah. We were all a close-knit since high school. The evening started perfectly. We found a clearing, set up our campfire, and began roasting marshmallows and grilling hot dogs. The forest was eerily quiet. The only sounds were our laughter and the crackling fire.
Did you know they said this forest is haunted by the spirits of those who died here? Oh, come on, Em. You don't really believe that, do you? I heard they wander around.
I laughed nervously, but a part of me felt uneasy. The darkness seemed thicker. The first sign of trouble came when we heard rustling in the bushes. We froze, listening intently. It was probably just an animal, but the sound was too deliberate, too human-like.
It's just the wind, right? Maybe. But it doesn't sound like the wind.
Jessica got up and shone her flashlight into the trees. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but dense foliage.
This is why
She
you can't
turned
do
back,
this.
shrugging.
See?
If it's
Nothing
simple,
there.
just don't
Suddenly,
do it.
the flashlight flickered and died. The fire seemed to dim at the same moment. We huddled closer. The fear was palpable. Then, the smell hit us, a rancid, decaying odor like rotten flesh. Sarah gagged, covering her nose.
What is that? It smells awful.
Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. Tall, thin, almost skeletal, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. I blinked, and he was gone.
Did you see that? See what?
I pointed, my hand shaking.
There was something there, I swear.
The laughter had died down. We were on edge, every sound magnified in the silence. Then the whispers began. Soft.
As a business owner, you have enough on your plate. So we made digital marketing tools to do the heavy lifting for you. Constant,
unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from all around us.
Who's there? Show yourself.
The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Panic set in. And that is when I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. But when I turned, there was no one there. My heart pounded in my chest. The fire suddenly flared up, casting grotesque shadows on the trees. We screamed as we saw the figure again, this time closer. Its face was twisted, eyes hollow and empty. It moved towards us, its limbs jerking unnaturally.
Run! Get out of here!
We scattered, running blindly into the forest. I tripped over a root, falling hard. Pain shot through my ankle, but I forced myself to get up. I could hear Emily and Jessica screaming somewhere in the darkness. Branches clawed at my skin, leaving deep scratches. The smell of decay grew stronger. I stumbled into a small clearing and saw Emily. She was standing still, her eyes wide with terror. Before I could reach her, something unseen dragged her into the darkness, and her scream was cut off abruptly.
Emily!
I felt a sharp pain in my side. Looking down, I saw deep, bloody scratches, as if made by claws. I stumbled back, trying to find my friends. The forest seemed to close in on me, and the towering trees were menacing. I heard Sarah crying nearby. I found her huddled against a tree, her face pale with fear.
Sarah! We need to go back! Now!
We supported each other, limping through the forest towards our car, which we had parked half a mile away. The whispers followed us, growing louder. Just as we got a glimpse of the road, the figure appeared again, blocking our path. Its mouth opened in a silent scream, and the air around us grew cold. That is when Jessica appeared out of nowhere, grabbing a branch and swinging. It passed right through the figure, but it distracted it long enough for us to run. We finally burst out of the forest, collapsing onto the road. Jessica joined us, and even though we called for Emily, we couldn't hear her anymore. The dawn was breaking. We had crossed a ranger station not far from where we were, so we immediately drove for help. The rangers took about 2 hours before they found Emily passed out near our campsite. She was badly bruised as well, but very much alive. We had made it out, but the horror of that night was etched into our minds forever. To this day, we don't really know what the figure was or why it attacked us, but I wouldn't venture in those woods again to find it out.
Yo!
That was scary. Oh,
Whoo!
that was scary.
Guys, let's watch another video. Look at the swipe.
All right, let's.
This one's 2 hours. Let's put it on.
Hmm?
That's 2 hours 21. Look.
It was a cold, quiet night when I pulled into the parking lot of the
Is that
deserted
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A. I hadn't been sleeping well since I lost my daughter to an accident, and eating had become more of a chore than a necessity. The place was eerily empty. As I approached the counter, I noticed a girl standing there. She looked to be in her late teens, with dark hair pulled back into a tight ponytail,
what is
her
that
uniform
spell? I'll go
stained.
down there.
But something about her seemed off. Her eyes darted around nervously, and her hands twitched as she fiddled with the register.
Excuse me,
My goodness.
can I please order?
She didn't respond at first, her eyes moving left to right really fast. When she finally looked at me, her pupils had suddenly turned a milky white. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my chest.
Ma'am, are you okay?
Her eyes cleared, and she blinked rapidly, as if coming out of a trance.
Sorry about that. What can I get for you?
Her voice was eerily familiar, and it sent chills down my spine. I shook my head, trying to focus.
A chicken sandwich, please?
She tapped at the register, her movements jerky and unnatural. Then she paused, a strange smile creeping across her face.
Hey, Ma. Still miss me?
My blood ran cold. My daughter, Emily, used to call me Ma, in the same exact tone when she was upset or disappointed. Emily, who had died in the tragic car accident 6 months ago.
What did you say?
The girl at the counter looked up, her eyes strange and dark. I took a step back.
Is this a joke? You one of her followers?
Her face contorted into a sinister grin.
Don't you remember? Psycho Emily, Ma. I shot the first one right in our old kitchen.
My heart nearly stopped. Emily had gained a huge following on Instagram for her spot-on impersonations of a psychopathic character. It was just an act, a harmless hobby. But seeing this girl mimic that persona so perfectly, right down to the chilling details no one knew, was way too much to bear.
Just missed my
Today
flight.
I'm sleeping.
Didn't do no purpose.
I hope you guys are
Yeah,
not
don't
going
worry.
to start today.
First of all, you would do this. I'll just run out. I don't get this one.
I think you owe me an apology.
With that, her hand leapt out and grabbed my neck, choking with an unholy force. I kicked the counter with everything that I had and pushed myself away. That is when she leapt and jumped on the counter, sticking her tongue out, her teeth now morphed into sharp razor ones. She leapt out, grabbed my arm with one and punched at my shoulder with the other. Pain shot through my body as she went on to twist my hand, and soon I could hear the bones cracking. I cried out, trying to pull away, but she held on tight.
I think you owe me an apology.
She hissed. I struggled, kicking and thrashing, but she was relentless. She dragged me across the floor, her eyes glowing with a malevolent light. I felt my strength fading, my vision blurring. Just as I thought I couldn't take anymore, I whispered,
I'm sorry, Emily. I love you. Please forgive me.
Suddenly, she stopped. Her grip loosened and she stepped back, her expression blank. I was driving the car when we crashed. I was checking my phone, and by the time I looked up to see that I had drifted from my lane, it was too late. An oncoming car had crashed into her side, killing her on the spot, while I escaped with minor injuries. I never got to tell her how sorry I was, until that moment. The lights suddenly flickered again, and when they steadied, my daughter was gone. In her place was a terrified teenager, her eyes wide with confusion.
What happened? Are you okay, miss?
She asked, her voice trembling. I lay on the floor, my body aching, tears still streaming down my face. The girl helped me to my feet and offered to drive me to the hospital. I stumbled out of the restaurant, holding onto my broken hand, the cold night air hitting my face like a slap. I looked back one last time, half expecting to see Emily standing there, her eyes filled with anger and pain. But the place was empty. I just hoped that she found peace wherever she was. I'm sorry, Emily.
Yeah.
Story
The room smelled of cheap wine and perfume as Nikita and I sprawled out on my bed. Our parents were away for the weekend, and we were determined to make the most of our freedom. Nikita, with her dark curls and mischievous eyes, had always been the instigator of our wild adventures.
Nick, maybe we shouldn't drink too much. Remember what happened last time? Relax, Charlize. Drunk decisions are the best decisions.
We giggled and poured another glass, the alcohol quickly loosening our tongues. Somewhere between our third and fourth drink, Nikita's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it and smirked.
Hey, isn't this that creepy guy from your gym? Rory?
My stomach tightened at the mention of his name. Rory had always given me the creeps. His intense eyes seemed to follow me everywhere at the gym, and his overbearing attempts to talk to me had become more than uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Ooh,
he's
something's got it.
weird. I think he's stalking me. He always shows up wherever I am. Let's have some fun with him. How about a little prank?
I hesitated. The wine was making me braver, but I knew Rory wasn't someone to mess with. Still, Nikita's infectious grin made me nod reluctantly. She handed me her phone, the screen already open to Rory's number.
Hey, Rory. It's Charlize. You literally just texted my bestie just because I blocked you? Jeez, you're crazy.
Yo,
Guess what?
Jeez.
I've been thinking about you. Nikita is also mighty impressed by your body. We were just stalking your gram. Here we are in a room, drunk, naughty, and my folks are out. Would you be interested in a good night, Rory?
The reply came almost instantly, the eagerness in his words palpable. He asked where I was, if he could come over. The thrill of the prank mixed with a growing sense of dread.
LOL, you're such a buffoon. I was just kidding, dumbass. Can't stand the sight of you. Stop stalking me.
Nikita and I burst into fits of laughter as she went on to fill 2 more glasses. An hour later, we had almost forgotten about the prank. The wine was making us drowsy, and we were about to call it a night when there was a loud knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. I stumbled to the door, peering through the peephole. Rory's face stared back at me, twisted with rage, his eyes wild and bloodshot.
It's Rory. He's here. Don't open it. Just tell him to leave.
I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands.
Rory, go away. We were just messing around. I'm sorry.
Open the door, Charlize. I just want to talk. His voice was slurred, an edge of desperation lacing his words. I stepped back, away from the door, shaking my head even though he couldn't see me. I thought for just a little longer, and that's when I heard the sound of glass shattering.
What the hell? Jesus.
Rory had broken a side window. Panic surged through me as I grabbed Nikita's arm, dragging her towards the back of the house. We had to get out, had to escape before he got in, but he was too fast.
Honestly, man, this
Rory
is
lunged
crazy.
through the broken window, cutting
Oh,
himself in the
no.
shards, but seemingly unfazed by the blood streaming down his arms.
Get projects in line in less time with Slack.
Oh,
Type it
God,
out.
yeah,
That's
this
so
is
scary.
Talk it out.
more in-
Knock it out.
Guys,
We sprinted through the house, the sound of Rory's heavy breathing close behind.
This is why you
He
don't
was
mess
high
with
on
people.
something, his movements erratic but relentless. We made it to the kitchen when he caught up, grabbing a knife from the counter. The next few minutes were a blur of chaos and terror. Rory swung the knife, slicing through the air. He went after Nikita first. She screamed as he slashed at her, leaving deep bruises and cuts.
Leave her alone, you psycho.
I grabbed a frying pan, swinging it at him with all my might. It connected with his head and he stumbled back, dazed, but it only seemed to make him angrier. He lunged at me, and I felt a sharp pain in my leg as the knife found its mark. I collapsed, the world spinning around me. Nikita tried to pull me up, but Rory was on us again, his eyes wild with rage, and something darker, something primal.
Please, Rory, just stop. We're sorry.
We can't let you mess with me. We can't. We've been hurt enough. This ends tonight. Nobody can hurt no more.
Who is we? Who are you talking to? Jeez, are you on drugs?
Rory's eyes were wild, his pupils dilated with a mix of rage and whatever drug he was on. He swung the knife again, this time slicing through the air inches from my face. Nikita got up to grab his arm, and he backhanded her, sending her sprawling across the kitchen floor. The sound of her head hitting the tiles echoed in the small space, and my heart sank. I crawled towards her, my injured leg dragging behind me. But Rory was faster. That is when I realized that my leg was broken. He grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking me back with a force that made my scalp burn. I screamed, hitting out blindly, my elbow connecting with his shin. He grunted, but didn't let go, instead pulling me closer, the knife now pressed against my throat. She thinks she's so smart, doesn't she? All that arrogance just because of that body. Let us destroy that piece by piece. Nikita, groaning in pain, managed to get to her feet. Blood trickled down her forehead, but her eyes were fierce. She grabbed a heavy vase from the counter and swung it at Rory's head. The vase shattered on impact, shards of porcelain flying everywhere. Rory staggered, releasing his grip on me momentarily.
Nikita, run!
But Rory recovered quickly, his rage intensifying. He slashed at Nikita, the knife cutting a deep gash in her arm. She screamed, clutching her arm as blood seeped through her fingers. I grabbed a chair, swinging it at Rory, but he ducked, the chair crashing into the wall instead. He kicked me in the stomach, the wind knocked out of me as I crumpled to the floor again on my broken leg. He loomed over me, the knife gleaming in the dim light. Desperation fueled Nikita's next move. She grabbed a bottle of cooking oil from the counter and flung it at his face. Rory screamed, the oil blinding him temporarily. I pulled out a lighter from my pocket, lit it, and flung it at his face. His voice was a guttural growl as his face lit up on fire. He wailed and screamed before running to the sink and putting his face underwater. Nikita was crying, her face a mask of fear and pain. I was writhing in pain myself. And then there was a loud crash, the sound of a door being kicked in. The next moments felt like they unfolded in slow motion. I opened my eyes to see the kitchen door splintered under a powerful kick, light flooding the room as several figures stormed in. The police. I moved with precision, guns drawn, shouting commands. "Drop the knife! Drop it now!" The officers tackled him to the ground, subduing him with swift, practiced movements while Rory kept crying over the burns he had suffered on his face.
Nikita, are you okay?
Nikita nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. Her clothes were torn, and bruises were already forming on her arms and neck. An officer knelt beside us, his voice calm. "You're safe now. We've got him. Let's get you both some medical attention." Paramedics arrived quickly, and I cried rivers as they started tending to me. The nightmare was over, but the scars it left would haunt me for life.
That's crazy. That's a very
It was just another busy Monday at the LAX. My shift had barely begun when the call came in. A woman at the bar was causing a disturbance. I was familiar with the usual disturbances: passengers who drank too much, who were stressed about their flights, or the entitled brats who demanded that the gates be open for them because it's the traffic's law that they weren't on time. But this call was different. The caller's voice was laced with fear I hadn't heard before. I arrived at the bar to find a scene of chaos. Broken glass littered the floor, and a circle of wary onlookers had formed around a woman standing on a table. She was middle-aged, with wild, unkempt hair, and eyes that darted around the room like a trapped animal's. Her clothes were disheveled, stained with spilled drinks.
"Get away from me, you snakes! You won't take me!"
The bartender caught my eye, motioning me over. As I approached the woman, Marie's attention shifted to me, and her expression twisted into one of pure hatred.
You're one of them, aren't you? Lucifer's dog.
I held up my hands in what I hoped was a calming gesture.
Ma'am, I'm here to help. Why don't you come down from there so we can talk?
She grabbed a bottle from the counter and hurled it at me. I barely dodged it, feeling the glass shatter against the wall behind me. The crowd gasped and took a collective step back.
Help? You call this help? You're all in on it. You don't think I know?
Her voice was rising, becoming more frantic. She leaped down from the table, landing awkwardly but not falling. With surprising speed, she charged at a young man near the bar, screaming incoherently. I rushed forward, managing to pull her away before she could do any real damage, but not before she landed a few wild punches on him.
Get back! Everyone, get back!
My words seemed to snap the onlookers out of their stupor, and they began to scatter. Marie, seeing her audience flee, became even more erratic. She dashed behind the bar, grabbing bottles, and one by one started flinging them with reckless abandon. The air filled with the sound of breaking glass and shouts of panic.
I'll blow this place to kingdom come. You'll all see. You'll all burn!
Who's ready to hatch some cool pets? Click here to make your very own monster on Adapted Mind.
My blood ran cold at her words. Bomb threats were no joke. I reached for my radio, calling for backup.
We have Code Violet at the bar. We need all available personnel now.
Marie had grabbed a large knife from behind the bar and was waving it wildly. I edged closer, trying to keep her attention on me.
Marie, put the knife down. We don't want anyone to get hurt.
She laughed, a high, hysterical sound that sent shivers down my spine.
Hurt? You think I care about hurt? You're all dead! Dead!
She lunged at me with the knife, and I barely managed to dodge. Her movements were erratic, but her strength was terrifying. I pulled out the taser, but she got to me first, slashing at my hand, making my taser fall down. She was fueled by a manic energy that made her incredibly dangerous. I could see the veins on her neck bulging, her eyes wide and bloodshot. Backup arrived just as she managed to corner a terrified woman, holding the knife to her throat. The sight of more uniforms only seemed to agitate her further.
No more dogs! No more! You'll all pay!
She was screaming now, the knife pressed against the woman's skin. My heart pounded as I tried to think of a way to defuse the situation. One wrong move, and this could turn deadly in an instant. My colleagues spread out, trying to surround Marie without provoking her further.
Marie, let her go. We are the dogs, right? Not them. They are just normal people.
Marie's eyes flicked between us, filled with a blend of paranoia and fury. She looked like a wild animal, cornered and ready to strike. Without warning, she shoved the woman away and lunged at me again, slashing wildly with the knife. My colleague seized the momentary distraction to rush in, tackling Marie to the ground. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and the knife skidded across the floor. But she was far from subdued. She writhed beneath them, screaming and scratching, her nails digging into their arms and face.
Let me go, you demons! I'm an American citizen. You can't do shit to me!
Her voice was a raw, primal scream that echoed through the bar. My colleagues struggled to keep her pinned. I, despite my injury, moved to help, and together we managed to hold her down until more security personnel arrived with restraints.
Secure her now!
It took all of us to restrain her, and even then she fought like a demon possessed, shrieking, wailing, making strange noises. Once she was finally subdued, handcuffed, and sedated, I slumped against the bar, breathing heavily. My arms and face throbbed with pain from the scratches and cuts. The bar was a wreck. Broken glass, spilled drinks, and bloodstains covered the floor. The patrons who hadn't fled stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Marie was carried away, still muttering about Lucifer's dogs and bombs. The paramedics arrived shortly after, tending to my wound and checking on the other injured passengers. I could see the disbelief and fear in their eyes, the same emotions I felt coursing through my own veins. This was an incident that would stay with all of us for a long time. As I looked around, taking in the aftermath, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered in the air. Marie's psychotic episode had been like a whirlwind, leaving destruction and fear in its wake. The police arrived, taking statements and starting their investigation. They praised us for handling the situation, but it felt like hollow praise. We had contained the immediate threat, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal. Later, I sat in the infirmary, nursing a cup of coffee and trying to steady my shaking hands. I kept seeing Marie's wild eyes, hearing her screams. The fear and desperation had been so palpable, so overwhelming. I wondered what had pushed her to that point, what demons she had been battling. As I left the airport later, the city lights blurred through my tired eyes. The events of the night replayed in my mind, a restless loop of chaos and terror. I knew I would have nightmares about it for weeks, maybe longer. The encounter had shaken me to my core, revealing the fragile line between sanity and madness. Marie's psychotic terror had left an indelible mark on all of us. As I drove home, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of vulnerability, a reminder of how quickly everything can unravel.
At your service, I guess.
No.
The perfect
You guys know how to do it.
Thank you for your
Oh, God.
You pushed me.
When Haley and I bought the old Victorian house on Maple Street, we felt like we'd stumbled upon a hidden gem. The house had character, large bay windows, ornate woodwork, and a sweeping staircase that creaked with history. It was everything we wanted, despite needing some renovation. Our cat, Shadow, a sleek black feline with piercing green eyes, took to the house immediately. He darted around the place as if he had discovered his own kingdom, but that changed after our first big renovation project. We were tearing down a wall to create a more open living space when I noticed something odd. Behind a section of drywall under the staircase, there was a hollow sound. Haley, come check this out.
What is it?
I think there's something behind this wall. A few more swings with the sledgehammer revealed a small door, hidden and forgotten. Haley and I exchanged excited glances and pulled it open. The air that escaped was stale, carrying with it the scent of damp wood and something else, something metallic. Wow, it's a storage room. Inside, the room was cramped, barely large enough for an adult to stand up straight. Dust-covered shelves lined the walls, filled with old, forgotten trinkets. But what caught my eye was in the center of the room. Handcuffs, chained to the floor. An icy chill ran down my spine as I stared at them.
What the hell? Why would anyone need handcuffs down here?
We left the room quickly, deciding to clean it out another day, but Shadow had other ideas. He began acting strangely around the area, hissing and arching his back whenever he got too close to the hidden door. That night, strange noises echoed through the halls. Soft whispers, like distant conversations, would drift through the rooms, sending shivers down my spine. As I lay in bed, I heard a faint tapping. I got up, following the sound down the staircase. The hidden door was open. My heart pounded in my chest. I vividly remembered closing it. I felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to close it and run, but I didn't. I stepped inside. The air was suddenly freezing as soon as I stepped inside. The hair on my arms stood on end. And then, the handcuffs rattled slightly, as if tugged by an invisible force. I bolted out of the room and slammed the door shut. The next day, I decided to set up a camera facing the hidden door. Haley thought I was overreacting, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Just humor me, please. I need to know if there's something there.
All right. If it'll help you sleep.
I watched the footage religiously, but for the first few nights there was nothing unusual. Shadow continued his erratic behavior, walking up to that room and setting guard outside. Ever so often he would make hissing sounds. Then, on the 5th night, the footage changed. The camera picked up Shadow pacing nervously in front of the hidden door. He meowed frantically, and then the door creaked open by itself. My breath caught in my throat as I watched a hand, a pale, skeletal hand, appear from thin air, clutching the handcuffs and yanking them violently. The chains rattled, and the hand vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Oh my God. Haley, you need to see this. I showed her the footage. Her face went pale as well. I had no answers, only a growing sense of dread. The house no longer felt like a home, but a prison of shadows and secrets. I knew we had to uncover the truth behind the hidden room before it consumed us entirely. I was not ready to move again since I had already sunk a lot of money into this place. Haley went around the neighborhood and spoke to people about the house's history. When that didn't give results, she spent hours at the local library, poring over old records. That is when she got answers from the old librarian.
Do you remember anyone talking about strange occurrences at the old Victorian on Maple Street?
Oh, that house has a bit of a dark past. It was owned by a man named Jacob Thorne in the late 1800s. Rumor has it he wasn't quite right in the head.
What do you mean?
They say he was a recluse, obsessed with occult practices. Some even whispered that he kept people imprisoned in his house. Slaves. But that's just a local legend, of course.
The pieces began to fit together, but they painted a grim picture. Jacob Thorne, the occult practices, the hidden room with handcuffs, it all pointed to something sinister. Despite our fear, we decided to get rid of the handcuffs. Armed with a flashlight and a crowbar, I pried open the door. The air inside was even colder than before, the metallic scent stronger. Haley stayed back, her face pale with fear. Shadow hissed from outside. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The handcuffs lay on the floor, untouched but ominous. As I reached out to touch them, a sudden force.
Oh my! I mean, yeah.
Yanked them from my grasp, sending me sprawling. Haley, get out of here! But before she could react, the door slammed shut. Darkness enveloped me, the temperature dropping rapidly. Whispers filled the air, growing louder and more frantic. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam flickering as if struggling against the malevolent presence. Who's there? Get out! This is my house now! You don't belong here! That is when I saw it in the low light emanating from the flashlight. A figure emerged from the thin air, a black man with a translucent body, eyes pale as ivory, and his hand tied to the handcuff. It was faint at first, but grew more solid, clearly visible to my eyes in some time. It didn't seem to sense me, but I could gather that the spirit was in pain. It growled slowly in an otherworldly noise, which got heavier and louder. Soon, the space around me began vibrating, shaking violently. Haley banged on the closed door from outside and yelled my name. I was paralyzed, but I knew that what I was about to do was right. With determination, I grabbed the crowbar and swung it at the handcuffs. They resisted at first, as if protected by some unseen force. With each strike, the cries of the black man's spirit grew louder, more frantic. I soon realized that I couldn't break the chains like that. So, instead, I started hitting the old times around it. They started developing cracks, and with a few more strikes, the tiles broke, releasing the chain. The moment they broke, a deafening scream filled the house. The figure suddenly stood still. No noise, no movement, as if looking at me with his pale eyes. And then he let out a dying wail before dissolving into a mist, the cold air dissipating. The door swung open and Haley ran in to hug me. The chains dissolved into the air as well. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a serene silence. Shadow appeared, rubbing against our legs, his behavior back to normal, and he started licking my leg. It's over. We did it.
The poor soul. Thank God it's finally free.
We agreed to fill in the storage space forever, knowing that some secrets are better left buried. As we settled into our now peaceful home, we felt a sense of closure. The house on Maple Street still had its history, but we had put one of its darkest chapters to rest. The grand opening of our town's first Chick-fil-A had finally arrived, and excitement was palpable. I was assigned to the front counter, welcoming customers with my best smile. The place was packed, families and friends enjoying the new spot. The air was filled with the scent of freshly cooked chicken, and the sound of chatter and laughter was almost deafening. The store mascot, a giant cow, stood in a corner. The guy behaved rather coldly, refused to pose for pictures with the kids, kept fidgeting one leg and rocking back and forth. It seemed a bit over the top, but the patrons kept poking fun at him. Around 1 p.m., the atmosphere suddenly shifted. I noticed the cow standing still in the middle of the dining area, its head tilted in an unnerving way. Then, without warning, it bolted towards the door and locked it. Then everyone shook to the sound of gunfire. The mascot had pulled out 2 guns and started firing. Panic erupted. People rushed to the exits, banging on the locked doors. They became the targets. Others ducked under their tables. The mascot soon dropped his empty gun and grabbed a nearby chair and swung it at the closest person, a young man who had been waiting for his order. He crumpled to the floor, blood pooling around his head. Screams filled the air. I ducked behind the counter, heart pounding. My colleague, Jenny, hurried next to me, eyes wide with fear.
What do we do? Stay low. We need to find a way out.
The cow continued its rampage, overturning tables, shooting at people. The once cheerful atmosphere had turned into a nightmare. I peeked over the counter and saw the cow moving methodically, targeting anyone who tried to hide or escape. It was terrifyingly precise, like it had planned every move. I crawled towards the back door, motioning for Jenny to follow. We reached the kitchen. I tried the back door. It was locked too.
Damn it! We're trapped. He planned this.
Jenny started to cry. I took her hand, trying to keep her calm. Suddenly, the kitchen door burst open, and the mascot stepped in. I froze, my heart feeling like it would burst out of my chest. It spotted us, dropped his 2 empty guns immediately, and charged. I grabbed a frying pan from the counter and swung it as hard as I could. It connected with the cow's head, but it barely slowed down. The mascot's head twisted around, the lifeless eyes of the costume staring into mine.
Run!
Jenny and I sprinted through the kitchen, but the mascot was right behind us. I could feel its hot breath on my neck. It grabbed my arm, yanking me back. I screamed as pain shot through my shoulder. I twisted around and kicked, hitting his knee. It stumbled, giving me a moment to break free.
Hurry, Carol!
I followed her into the walk-in freezer. We slammed the door shut, locking it from the inside. The cold air hit me like a wall, but I didn't care. We were safe now. The mascot banged on the door, the man's muffled growls penetrating the thick walls. I knew it wouldn't hold forever. My shoulder throbbed, and I could feel the blood trickling down my arm.
What's happening? Who's that man?
I didn't have an answer. All I could think about was surviving. After what felt like an eternity, we heard police sirens. There were noises outside, and then silence. We waited in the cold before we couldn't take it anymore. I cautiously stepped out, motioning for Jenny to stay behind. I made my way back to the dining area, each step cautious. The sight that greeted me was horrific. bodies lay scattered, the once vibrant restaurant now a scene of chaos and death. Then I saw it, the mascot, on his knees in the middle of the room, his head removed. Underneath was a man, his face twisted with anger and pain, surrounded by the police. "This is my family's land. My forefather bled here. You can't take this away from us. It has our blood. Now it will have theirs." I realized who he was. A local, known for his eccentric and often aggressive stance on the town's development. He believed the restaurant was on his ancestors' land. He looked at me, the madness in his eyes faltering for a moment. Then, with a final scream of rage, he suddenly charged at me. I braced myself, but all the officers around him fired at once. I leaned against the wall, trembling, crying. I wouldn't wish this terror upon my worst enemies.
Tinker's item editor gives you the ability to personalize the look of any of Minecraft's hundreds of items. You can change your iron sword into a flaming sword.
Pledge Night at Delta Gamma was infamous for its intensity, but this year we decided to up the ante. As one of the emerging frat leaders, I, Tom, was tasked by the seniors with orchestrating a prank that would be talked about for years. The plan was simple, a fake kidnapping to test the mettle of our new pledges. It was meant to be controlled chaos, a scary but safe rite of passage. Only I had no idea it would turn into a nightmare. The night was cool and the moon was obscured by clouds, casting an eerie gloom over the abandoned warehouse we had chosen as the stage for our prank. The pledges, blindfolded and disoriented, were led inside one by one, their hands bound loosely in front of them. Their nervous laughter echoed off the walls, mixed with the faint, stern voices of us brothers acting as their captors. "Keep it moving, pledges. Tonight you'll prove if you're worthy of Delta Gamma," I shouted, trying to sound menacing. We had staged the warehouse with creepy props, old chains hanging from the ceiling, dim lighting flickering intermittently, and sounds of eerie whispers played from a hidden speaker. It was all theatrics. That is when 5 other seniors entered on bikes, disguised as gang members. They started shouting, pulled out guns, and made the few seniors who were there run away. It was all part of the prank, to make the pledges feel that our prank had gone wrong and they were in actual trouble. But we didn't know what scared pledges would do. The atmosphere shifted when Mike, one of the seniors, climbed a stack of crates to pretend to be running away from the biker gang. In his zeal, he lost his footing, crashing down with a terrifying thud. The sound of his fall was sickening. As he lay motionless, a pool of blood began to form around his head. Panic set in among the pledges and brothers alike. "Oh my God, he's really hurt!" someone yelled. The scene descended into chaos, the lines between our staged fright and real horror blurring rapidly. In the confusion, I noticed one of the pledges, Paul, his blindfold hanging around his neck,